There's something I find so incredibly ironic about this entire situation. Now, for those of you that don't remember, although I'm assuming all of you do, Jacob Zuma was the president of South Africa, and he was a bad one. South Africa, and a lot of South Africans will actually point to Jacob Zuma as not being as bad as Cyril Ramaphosa, because at least under Jacob Zuma, South Africa was still growing roughly by about 1.9% per year, and that at least under Jacob Zuma, inflation wasn't anywhere near as bad. Jobs were still relatively okay. The one thing that most people don't necessarily think about, as we discussed in our earlier video about inflation, is that economics, very much like politics, is an exponential game. It's a game that builds upon itself. So, for example, if one president is bad, you're not necessarily going to see the effects of the bad decisions that that president makes within the 8 years that that president is in office. Because a lot of things that people do in office will take a very long time before it starts to veer out in the data. For example, when people warned that BEE will absolutely hinder the economic progress of South Africa, it wasn't until 2 years later that South Africa's economy would finally start to respond. Jacob Zuma famously is the man who built 2 power stations, but then also allowed those power stations to be looted dry to the point where these power stations just never actually came online. The other problem, of course, with the power situation was that thanks to Jacob Zuma having to balance between stealing a lot of money but also then fixing a lot of the power stations, was that the power stations just never got fixed to the point where they wouldn't just deteriorate even faster. The problem with almost everything in life, and we all know this, if you have a car, for example, a single noise that you kind of ignore can turn into a bigger noise that you kind of ignore, and then maybe your car starts shaking and you ignore that too, and before you know it, the whole thing seizes up. If you just fix the noise, that may have been a bill of $500. If you wait until it seizes up, you're now paying thousands of rands to actually fix the car. That was Jacob Zuma. That was his presidency. But he's not the only one. You go back to Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki famously was the president in 1998 that was told by Eskom that unless they build new power stations, Eskom will have to start load shedding. Thabo Mbeki decided to ignore that and then say, well, that's the next guy's problem. I'll use this money on other things. You see, that's the problem with the ANC. Every single thing is someone else's problem because right now they're focused on winning votes. And unless something can win votes immediately, there really is no point as far as the ANC is concerned. So to understand Jacob Zuma's incredible career of being a criminal is actually quite rough. You go through Wikipedia here and you find that it started already in 1999 with the nuclear arms deal, if you guys remember that, or the arms deal, as it was known. And then from there, it just sort of spirals. You go here, the arms deal, the Sheikh trial, you have the first indictment that happens on 2005, 2006. Then you have in 2006, the charges are struck off. All of this he's paying for, by the way. Then you have the second indictment. You have 2008, the charges are declared unlawful. Then you have 2009, charges reinstated on appeal. Then you have April 2009, charges withdrawn. And then you have the withdrawal of charges overturned just after Jacob Zuma leaves office. And of course, or just before Jacob Zuma leaves office, excuse me. And then in March 2018, after he leaves office, the charges are now reinstated. Application of stay, warrant of arrest, state of liability. Okay, so all of this, that's his entire case. I'm not going to go over all of the reasons why he had all of these legal cases. Effectively, all you need to know is the man stole a lot of money from the South African taxpayer, and as a result of that, he had to be charged. Of course, how did he pay for all of this? He used taxpayer funds in order to fund his own criminal trials. So the money that he stole from taxpayers, he then used taxpayer money in order to defend against the stealing of taxpayer money. This originally was found to be unlawful. Then he lost office. He was no longer the president. He appealed this decision, and it was upheld by the Court of Appeal. to which his lawyers went to the highest court in the land. And that court just found that actually, no, sir, you are liable for all of these funds. That is 28.9 million rand. That's how much Jacob Zuma currently owes the people of this country. And that's not even the extent of it. That's just the first ruling. The DA also asked that Jacob Zuma be forced to pay at least some of the interest. The interest of this money is about 18 million rand already. So Jacob Zuma owes a lot of money. The judge in this case is holding nothing back. The judge in this case has ordered Jacob Zuma to start repaying the money within 60 days. If Jacob Zuma fails to make any payment, if he fails to make an arrangement in 60 days, they are authorized by the judge to go in and claim either all of his pension or parts thereof, as well as seize any and all assets that he might have on his name. So we may actually finally get that house back that we all helped build for hundreds of millions of rands that didn't belong to the man, Nkandla, if you guys remember that little fiasco. The point is, Jacob Zuma is done. And I find it funny because in the ANC, it's always this factional thing. If your faction is in power, you can do whatever you want. But the ANC, and this sort of proves why the ANC is starting to fall apart, because the ANC's factional, or the factionalization of the ANC has gotten more and more sort of robust as time has gone on, or should I say more strict as time has gone on. Right at the beginning in 1994, the factions were all sort of united under a single front. Yes, they wanted different things, and they wanted to do things slightly differently, but they still all had this vision of the ANC in mind. The new factions, not so much. The new factions now no longer care about what you want or what anyone else wants. The new faction wants its pound of flesh. It wants to loot, it wants to steal, it wants to be corrupt, and if you're out of the way, if you lose power, then they will come after you with everything they've got. You see this with Ramaphosa, slowly but surely removing every single person that have shown any amount of loyalty towards Jacob Zuma, because fundamentally he is now cementing the power within his own faction, hoping at least to do that. Should the day come that Ramaphosa is replaced, I guarantee you that they will go after Ramaphosa as hard as he went after Jacob Zuma. And it'll probably come from Paul Mashatile and crew, because that's fundamentally how it works. The ANC only cares about corruption as long as it's not their faction that is doing the corruption. But this is amazing. This is really cool. Seeing Jacob Zuma, and this is a man that I genuinely could not care less about. Seeing this man potentially losing Nkandla is just the funnest thing on earth. And I really hope that they do claim it. And usually with court cases like this, if he now tried to move Nkandla from his name to his wife's name, or try to move, the court will just go in and still take it, right? Because they're not limited by nonsense. They are absolutely allowed to do that. And so, yeah, the judge in this case was absolutely brutal. And it's going to be interesting. In 60 days, we'll find out if Jacob Zuma can actually pay back the money that he stole from taxpayers. Ladies and gentlemen, some days in South Africa, it is good news. As always, hit the like if you liked it. If you didn't, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of this story. What do you want to see happen to Jacob Zuma? I'd love to read your thoughts. As always, massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons as well as the YouTube channel members for continuing to support this channel and allowing me to do the things that I do. As always, be good to each other, be kind to each other. If you want to become a patron, link in the description down below or join button right below this video. And I'll see all of you in the next one. Peace.